Let's see what a couple of my faithful comrades have to say. Irshad Manji is here tonight. She's the author of The Trouble with Islam Today and creator of the PBS documentary, Faith Without Fear. Also with me, Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League. Irshad, Bill, I don't buy what John Edwards just said. How can you be against gay marriage because of your faith, knowing full well that if Congress passed the bill, you likely wouldn't sign it because it's against your faith? Bill, what do you make of his answer?
I thought it was preposterous. He would have made more sense if you come out and said, listen, I'm in favor of gay marriage. But this idea that he was struggling, this feigned idea of listening to my wife, but if you haven't made up your mind about the institution of marriage, then, quite frankly, I don't think you should be running for president of the United States. I'll go that far. Independent of faith, the American people want a straight answer, and what they got is a guy who can't even figure out where he stands on.
He's going to stand with the answer.
No. First of all, straight answer, no pun intended. But that being said, you guys are making the classic mistake, if I may be so bold, of reducing our politicians to mere caricatures, to mascots, to cardboard cutouts. Here's a guy who is legitimately saying, look, I'm struggling with this issue. If we want our politicians to be authentic, why do we punish them when they express their ambivalences?
He wasn't struggling. What that was a way for him to say, I'm feeling your pain, I understand, but I'm still going to vote against it.
It was a wicked and notch in the gay community. That's what he's basically saying. Give me 6 months, I'll catch up with my wife. He was dishonest in what he was doing.
Why are you saying, wait a minute, why is being on a journey of sorts, albeit publicly,
a journey
opportunistic?
On marriage?
Why?
We're not talking here about jaywalking, we're talking about marriage.
Come on.
But he's not on a journey, because he's been very consistent by saying, and he said it that night, I am against gay marriage because of my faith. Now, but do you actually believe, though? Because look, we got a president in the White House who talked about being a compassionate conservative, talked about his faith, and frankly, who has put a lot of his policies within a faith prison.
Yep.
Do you have a problem with that?
Putting it in a faith prison?
Absolutely.
No, but what I do have a problem with is imposing faith on public policy. And I happen to think that Joe Biden had the great answer of the night, which is that for him, faith shapes values, but reason dictates the outcomes or the conclusions. Every major religion has a great reason tradition. And it's about time, Roland, that somebody's president tapped into that tradition.
Bill, that was a Catholic talking. You buy his answer?
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, yes, faith and reason, that's exactly what Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict XVI talk about. We want somebody in the White House who has a religiously informed conscience. That doesn't mean you go checking the catechism when you go for a vote.
Right, exactly.
But you know what? This is tricky business. If you try to say, like Giuliani's trying to say, don't ask me about that, it's between me and my God. The American people want a little bit more than that. We don't want some fundamentalist type of Bible-thumping kind of answer, but we want somebody who is sincere. This is the minefield for all these candidates. Are you sincere or are you opportunistic in pitching your God talk to the faithful?
Yeah, and we speak of God talking. Irshad, look, the reality is when a person who's elected, when they swear on the Bible, in the case of Congressman Ellison, they swear on the Quran, they are swearing to uphold the Constitution. And we saw it in Alabama with Judge Roy Moore. He wanted that monument of the Ten Commandments, but he had to uphold the law. What happens when the Bible and the Constitution collide?
Well, let me tell you something. As a non-American, as a Canadian, I can tell you just from the perspective of world opinion that the way in which an American president treats the separation of faith and politics very much influences what happens outside of America. Other countries' leaders then get to say, if that line is blurred, well, America, the great beacon of democracy, the great beacon of secularism, they don't take that distinction seriously. Why should we? American presidents have to be very conscious that what happens in the United States affects a whole lot more outside of the United States.
And look, when you speak from that point of view, you talk about you being a Muslim, you being lesbian, and trust me, there are not some Muslims who really are not happy,
you gotta tell me, brother. You gotta tell me. You better duck when you're in front of me, okay? That's how angry a lot of Muslims are with me. Sure.
Bill.
Let me just say something about my religion here. If you want to wear your religion on your sleeve, like Kerry tried to say, that I'm a devout Catholic every time he opened his mouth, and then you find out you stiff the Catholic Church on every public policy issue, that's a problem. Look, Geraldine Ferrara was the biggest disaster of them all in 1984. She said there are 2 legitimate Catholic positions on abortion. Sorry, folks, when it comes to genocide, discrimination, serial killing, abortion, there is one legitimate position in the Catholic Church, and it's to be against the killing of unborn children. You can't try to sell it that way. So you've got to be sincere in how you approach it. I'm not saying you have to be goose stepping with the Catholic Church on everything, but be careful how much you sell that.
But you know what I find, hold on a second, what I find so interesting is that you keep accusing Edwards of being insincere, being opportunistic. The two women, the lesbians,
hold on a second. Anti-Catholics who I get rid of.
Hold on a second. Well, you know, if it's anti-Catholic, then it must be, you know, completely bad in your eyes.
Well,
that's all you're reducing it to.
With racism
about the Pope,
hold on a
I have
second.
been called anti-Catholic.
Hold on a second.
I was raised a Catholic.
The point I'm trying to make here is that the two women who asked the gay marriage question, lesbians themselves, they actually acknowledged that even though they disagreed with Edwards' position, they still gave him credit for being honest. So listen, Bill, if it's good enough for the lesbians, why isn't it good enough for you,
I don't take lesbians as my benchmark
I'll
for
bet
anything.
you don't.
Let
And
me
you know
tell
what? I don't take Catholics as my standard of anything. What I take is human beings, all right, and all of our complexity.
I take reason.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will say this. First of all, when we get done, we'll all pray together. But the one thing I am glad about, I am glad to see Democrats finally not run from the faith issue. This is the first time in a long time they are spending a considerable amount of time dealing with faith as a part of the campaign, and I believe that is a good thing. That's been one of the biggest criticisms they've had for quite some time. Irshad Manji, Bill Donahue, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
God bless.